Hey guys, welcome to Conceptual Geometry, Lesson 4.2, Line Reflections. We're going to get started with an example. They're giving us triangle ABC, and they want us to reflect it over the y-axis. Well, here's a quick review of our axes. The y-axis is the vertical axis, and the x-axis is the horizontal axis. So if they want us to reflect this triangle, it's as if we're folding the paper on the y-axis, and we have to predict where that's going to go on the other side. Well, fortunately for us, because we're on a grid, this is actually pretty simple. I'm going to start with point C, and if I need to reflect it, I need to figure out how many blocks I have to go to get to that line, and then you go the same number of blocks to the other side. So C will go right there. And notice how they want us to label it. We're starting with triangle ABC, and we're going to name it A prime, B prime, C prime. That's what the apostrophe means when it comes to transformational geometry. So that'll be C prime. So now I do the same thing with B. Count the number of blocks to the y-axis, and then you go that same number of blocks to the other side. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So B prime would be here, and I'm going to do the same thing with A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, way over there at the end. And that's A prime. And now we just sketch in that triangle. And I've just reflected that. I've labeled a new figure, A prime, B prime, C prime. Great. Now it wants us to take triangle ABC. So again, I'm starting with this one. Now I'm going to reflect it in the x-axis. Okay, so now I'm folding my paper on this axis. So it's the same concept. I'll count the number of blocks to that line of reflection, and then you go the same number of blocks to the other side. So for my A, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll go right there. 1, 2, 3, let me recount. That'll be A, oh no, sorry. They want us to label this with a P. Notice this says PQR. Okay, so now I'll take my C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That'd be down there. And C, we have to make sure we match this up. C becomes R. Okay, so it'll be R. And then with the B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like I'm missing a line there in the grid. And that'd be Q. All right, sketch that one in. Lastly, it says to take triangle PQR. So that's the one we just got down here. And reflect it in the y-axis. So we're going back to the y-axis. And we're going to label that P prime, Q prime, R prime. So I'm taking this triangle, reflecting in this axis. So I'll end up going over here. Okay, so the R I'll do first because it's closest to the y-axis. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. That would be R prime. Q would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. End up being over here. That'd be Q prime. And then P, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Way over there at the end. P prime. And then sketch in the triangle. Now notice all four of these triangles should be the exact same size and shape. They've just been reflected. So it's kind of cool the way this works. I started by taking this triangle, reflecting the y-axis, and went over here. Then I took this triangle, reflected in the x-axis, and it came down here. And then finally I took this triangle, reflected it in the y-axis, and that went over here. But you can see how these reflections work. You can do lots of different reflections, and they all end up being the same. It's like folding your paper, but you're taking the exact same size and shape triangle and folding it to another side. All right, well, the rest of today's lesson will be a little bit more challenging because we're not going to be on a grid anymore. So we're going to sketch this triangle, the image of this triangle reflected in this line as best we can. So if you were to fold your paper, where would this go over here? Well, if we're doing this freehand, what we want to do is we want to figure out the approximate distance from C to this line. Now, I'm actually going to sketch that in. So I use a little dotted line here, and then you have to go that same distance to the other side, and that's going to be C prime. Okay, well, maybe I'll go down here to A next. And just sketch that in. We're not going to use a straight edge. We're just kind of estimating. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I don't want it to be sloppy either. That would be A prime. And then B, that approximate distance over here, and that'd be B prime. So if I had to do this freehand, I might get something that looks sort of like that. Okay? All right, let's move on. We'll do one more of these, then we'll just have to label some points that have been reflected already. Draw the image of this quadrilateral after reflecting it over the line K. Now, one of the things that's kind of interesting here is if you notice, this point is actually on the line already. So think about looking in the mirror. If you put your fingertip on the mirror, that reflection doesn't move. So that point right there is going to stay the same. So let's take D, that's pretty easy. And I'll go to the other side, and that's where that goes. Now notice they're making the naming here a little bit more challenging. Instead of just using primes, they want us to do P, Q, R, S. So we have to make sure, I just reflected D. D's the last one, that would have to be an S. So this point here is going to be S. We said C is not going to move, so C, I label with an R. So that point is also an R. It's a C and an R. And let's take B and estimate over here. That looks like it's about right. B is the second letter, would be a Q over here. And lastly, the A. This one's hard. Estimate that distance going over here. A becomes P, and now you just have to sketch this in. Now, obviously, it should be the same size and shape, but since we're just sketching it freehand, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but that's pretty good estimation. All right, and the final thing we're doing today, it's a pretty easy lesson, is they're giving us a picture of a reflection. So you can think of either this rectangle right here was reflected over here, or vice versa. Now, think about how reflection works. I'm just going to give you a quick visual here. C, when it got reflected, went to T. If we went the other way, R, when it got reflected, went to A. So what they're doing now is they're just going to give us a reflection. This is reflection in line P of point A. And they want us to say, okay, well, where did it go? So if you take point A and you reflect it, where did it go? It went down here to R. So what they want in that question is just R, just that point. Okay, the next one, C. Where did C go if you reflect it? It went to T. Okay, so that's just a T. Well, now they give us a segment. That means segment AD. Notice, from A to D, where did that go? Well, A went to R, and D went to S. So AD became RS. It has to be the same type of shape, so RS with a segment over the top. Next, we've got DC. DC became ST. So we have to name it ST, put that bar over the top. The next one, it says angle B. So I reflected angle B. Well, angle B is simply this angle right here. So where did that angle go? It went down here to angle V. So make sure you use your angle symbol and angle V. Next one, they use 3 letters. Angle ADC is this angle here. Where did that go? Went to RST. Angle RST. And finally, back to a segment. Segment BC. BC became segment VT. So as you can see, quite a bit of visualization in this unit. It's only the first day of line reflections. We're going to spend a few days on this. So if you don't quite get it yet, hang in there, do the best you can on the Delta Math homework, and then when we get into class, we'll spend, like I said, a few more days on line reflections. Thanks for watching, guys. Do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions whatsoever.